One thing that we've learned about the brain is that anxiety and excitement are total like kissing cousins, or like, I hate that. What a fucking gross.
Yeah.
Why do we say that?
I've never said it in my life, but continue.
I'd love to unsay it.
There's a chance that only you and your family say that, and that you've thought and your whole life you've been saying it.
Look it up. Read a book.
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what is Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take.
All right, Matt, here we go. Live via satellite. We are coming at you on your podcast device. We're talking about why are we so hard on ourselves? What is that all about? Matt, you brought this topic to us today. I think you might have some research to round us out. Do you want to go over there and dive in? Like, how do you want to start here?
It's usually you that rounds us out, but I'll do my best.
Okay.
We talk about all the time that one of the best things we can do for our kids is be happy people, right? Like as parents, happy, satisfied people who are kind to ourselves. I think that one of the best things we can do this season is devote regular time to talking about the things that either like rob us of joy or give us joy.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Continue. What? What? It was the rob us of joy that got me. But continue. It's too poetic. But
I'm married to a therapist. This is how they talk. You know, it rubs off a little bit.
Yeah.
How about this?
I'm on board.
We're going to talk about the shit that keeps us from being as happy as we could be, and then the shit that makes us really happy. We're going to devote time to that.
Yeah.
Because one of the best things you can do for your kids is to be fulfilled yourself, if you can.
Yeah.
There's a great old Wendell Berry quote. This great writer. Be joyful, for it is humanly possible.
Yeah.
As I was doing research for this, man, it's funny. If you just even do a Google search for why are we so hard on ourselves, you will find billions of results. So this is a problem. This is a pervasive thing. This is a thing that a lot of people struggle with.
Okay.
So I had a conversation with a good friend, another dad, a really smart dude named Marion recently. And the genesis of the conversation was we were on a double date with him and his wife, and we kind of all went around the table talking about whether we thought of ourselves as confident people or not. And everybody's answer to that was interesting. And it got to me, and I said, I don't quite know how to answer it, because on the one hand, I am like hubristically confident about my skill set in certain things. But on the other hand, I think I'm a total piece of shit. And
Matt,
I know, but dude, come on, you don't? A little bit?
Zero.
You're privy to all of your thoughts and weaknesses.
Yeah, it's all gravy. The only time is like when I'm really tired in the morning, from the moment I wake up to the moment I like brush my teeth, I'm worried that I'm not up for the challenge for those like 5 minutes. That's it.
Okay.
But I never think the logic, it never touches the logic side. I'm just I'm like, I don't want to do this. Is going to be too hard for me to do. I kind of feel sorry for myself for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then that lasts like just until I have a coffee.
I don't think it touches the logic side for me so much either. I think it is just like a deep, like when I do the things of like thinking through like what my life looks like.
But you said you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're a bad person?
Just I mean, just a piece of shit. Just a worthless piece of shit.
Oh my God.
But I don't.
I'm like, so hold on. Let's clearly define what all these things are and what they can be with the being too hard on yourself. Let's just go back and forth saying some things. Like for me, it's like if I make an error, running it through my head a lot and saying like, why did I do that? right? Like that's
Yeah,
one
sure.
manifestation. What are some
Yeah.
more? Let's talk through so that everyone's kind of on the same page, is like what this means to be hard on yourself.
I got some greatest hits. One is that I'm irresponsible, that I make irresponsible choices that introduce too much risk into my family's life, or are impulsive and favor short-term thinking over long-term thinking. That's a good one.
Okay. And when do you have that feeling? Because obviously if you thought about it all the time, you wouldn't maybe make those impulsive things. So like, are they rational? Are you actually impulsive?
I got it in me. Sure. Yeah. But no, I don't think that's a rational assessment of myself. It's funny. I was talking to my friend on the phone and mentioned that I often think of myself as irresponsible. And he just goes, "You're one of the most responsible people I know." And I was like, all right, thanks. Good note.
Okay. So yeah, there's also just like being hard on yourself, like from a parent standpoint. We've talked about it with Caitlin Murray, among others, about like parental guilt.
Yeah.
I should do this. I should be a better parent. Like when you yell at your kids, like feeling bad about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other things being hard on yourself?
That I feel like I can be selfish. Most people can, like that's pretty hardwired into all of us, but that sometimes I might make selfish decisions, or that I can be manipulative, which, I think anybody who's like fairly socially aware, like anybody who has the ability to be manipulative probably can at times.
But usually people who are manipulative don't then have that feedback loop of knowing that they're manipulative, one, and then two, feel bad about it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think, a lot of these things don't touch the rational. Like, so yesterday I was working on this project and I didn't get it done. It was on my to-do list for the day. And the reason I didn't get it done was it actually harder and required a lot more attention than I realized. But so I decided that I was going to go back to work after my wife went to bed. And I got into flow state, man. And I worked on this thing for like 3 or 4 hours and I kicked its ass. And then I was so like juiced up that I knocked out like 3 other things. It was one of those nights where it's like, I just did a week worth of work in one night.
Yeah.
And then I got back inside and I looked at the clock and my first thought was like, you fucking idiot, you stayed up too late. And I had put myself in a double bind where if I had gone to bed, I would have felt like I failed at work. And by just absolutely doing better than my greatest expectations for my work that night, I felt irresponsible for having stayed up too late. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff where like, if I step back and analyze it, it's like, oh, there was no win in this one. Like this, I was not going to come out of this. And I don't want to overstate it. I mean, I think if you asked me rationally, like, do you think you're a good person? I would say yes. And I'm proud of my family and I think I'm a good father and I've been proud of my track record in business from the standpoint of the work I've done and it's, and the way I've treated people. But this is what really spurred this idea for me. So we were out with Marion and his wife, Laura, whose names we can cut later if they don't want to. I should ask them.
Okay.
But new friends, badasses. And Marion, I should preface this by saying, is like, he's not like a soft dude. This guy's like he's a go out and win kind of guy. He's an athlete. He's like a very successful guy. But so coming from him, it was kind of an interesting statement. So I was like, there is this voice in me, despite all of these things that I rationally think about myself and would tell you about myself if you asked me. There is a voice that's in there just saying like, yeah, but dude, you're a piece of shit.
Oh my God.
And what this guy Marion said was the craziest thing is that voice loves you or is at least trying to protect you. And that sent me down this whole new framing that my job is not to silence this voice that is hard on myself. It is to figure out why it feels like it needs to keep being there and what it is trying to do for me and save me from. And yes, maybe it's like a maladaptation of that impulse, and maybe it's run amok, but at its heart, what is that voice that seems so cruel trying to save me from, trying to help me with, trying to do? And that led to some interesting thinking and some interesting research.
Okay. Yeah. Before we get into the research, just like one thing is just like that voice seems to be kind of mean for you. Like, Jesus, it's a mean voice. I mean, that's one thing. But then two is like, this is an important part of our brain, that other side that is, that keeps us from skipping work. That keeps us from, that keeps us from like our bad impulses. So
100%.
there is a portion where you need this. It's just, if it gets out of control and gives you parental shame, if we don't do the work and talk about it, and we just let it go, because then you think that your feelings and your thoughts and your internal monologues are truth. Yeah. And it's like, then you feel like you are a piece of shit.
Yeah. One thing you just said it made me realize that I was a little bit full of shit. It's funny, when I give that voice a voice, it is mean. And it's kind of funny to give it that voice. But the truth is, that voice in my head is not so much mean as it is like anxious and scared.
What are you doing? Why are you staying up so late?
Like, what if you fuck this up? What if all this is like bad choices? Why are you being here? Yeah. Yeah. So it's not so much like you're a dick. It's more like, oh, buddy, like you're screwing up again. Why do you keep doing it wrong?
Okay. That's more relatable. I was like, holy shit. You're a fucking piece of shit. Oh, God. Yeah. No, I can relate to that. Like, like, what are you doing? Like, oh, you're not up for the task. Like, anxious, like you're not good enough. Like, this isn't going to work. Like, you're a fraud. Like, your hubris got you out of control, man.
100%.
Rein it back. Yeah.
So I want to talk about 3 main things I found in the research that I found fucking interesting. Okay. The first one is a part of your brain called the default mode network. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah. The DMN.
Yeah. Classic DMN. No. So the way you delivered that, I was like, oh yeah, he knows about the DMN. Max has no idea what the fuck I'm good at.
Listen, guys, if there's one thing I'm good at, it's listening to 3 words and making a fast acronym from those words. It's one of my hidden talents.
Anyways, here's the way to think about the default mode network. It's not too complicated. It's not going to get too wonkish. Yeah. The default mode network is the part of your brain that operates when there is no external stimulus. So this part of your brain turns off as soon as there's a task to do, or as soon as you're in danger, or as soon as you need to interact for whatever reason with the outside world. The default mode network is not going. The default mode network is what cranks up when your brain is not having to do anything that relates to the world around you.
Kind of like sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system a little bit.
Yeah, they're pretty related. I would say they're not like the way I think of the sympathetic and parasympathetic, like the sympathetic's like an inhale. It's up, like excited, anxious, all those things. Parasympathetic is an exhale. It's down, it's relaxed, it's calm, but it can also be depressive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the default mode network is typically going when you're more in your parasympathetic nervous system. What the default mode network is in charge of is really interesting. It is the time when you are able to self-reflect and form an impression of your own identity. It is also a time, the part of your brain that sorts through memory and thinks about the future, which, if you think about it, are deeply tied to your identity. Your identity is made up of everything that has come up to this point and everything that will hopefully come later. It is creativity. It's how you go from 0 to 1. Empathy. It is a part of your brain that is deeply connected to understanding the impact you're having on the people around you and your relationship to your community and the people in your life, right? It's basically all the things that your brain can't do when it's dealing with shit. And as soon as you're not dealing with shit, your brain's like, okay, all right, what the fuck is actually going on? Let me reflect. It's reflection. The default mode network is super critical, obviously. I mean, you hear what it does and you're like, oh man, this is like key to understanding who you are and to operating in the world. But the default mode network is also pretty concerned with your own identity and how you fit into the group around you and how well you're doing relative to your peers and how accepted you are by your community and your family. And those are all like critical adaptations, right? Like we go back to talking about survival. If you're a dickhead and you're cast out of the village, then you die alone getting eaten by a bear. So you need to keep tabs on how you're doing. But it is very easy when you introduce anxiety into this picture for your default node network to just spin out of control, comparing yourself to other people, comparing, trying to keep up with the Joneses, self-flagellating, worrying that you're not good enough. And that lined up with this thing this guy Marion said, like, what is it trying to do for you? Well, what it's trying to do is like give you good standing in the people that are around you and be self-critical in ways that are actually helpful, that could lead you to improve. What you got to keep tabs on is when that slips into something that is brutal, essentially, and not tied to the reality of how well you're actually doing in the world.
Yeah, and I think it always just comes down to just disassociation and and basically viewing yourself from a drone or from 30,000 feet. I think so often we think that our feelings are truth. And just like, if I feel it, then it is true. So I need to act on it. So it's similar to that is this DMN. I've never heard of it before, but it sounds like a really cool AI tool like ChatGPT.
Yep.
That is, if it was a third party tool, we'd say, okay, let's check it out. Let's see how good this tool is. Okay, it's a little turned up. Like, chill the fuck out, man. You're saying I'm a bad dad? I'm not a fucking bad dad. Like, yeah, I yelled at my kids. Like, let's turn that down. And I think that's some of the work that we're doing here. But I think that what's hard is we assume that the DMN is truth a lot of times.
Yeah.
And like, I wake up and I only have DMN anxiety for 5 minutes a day in the morning. But I'm usually like, before the day gets started, before I have coffee, I'm like, I'm not good enough, blah, blah. Stacking up to peers, stacking up to the world. Oh my God, I've overcommitted. My hubris has got me in a fucking scary situation. If I was able to see that from a third party, like, hey, what's my morning report? If I could read that in a calm way, I'd be like, okay, relax, guy.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not up for the task? Have you seen my fucking track record, bitch?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
come on. Like, relax. The problem is, we need that middle layer to interpret this as, because it is very important also. You fucking do something shitty to your kids. You scream at them. You do something horrible. Well, that third party app is going to say, notification. You did something shitty to your kids.
Yeah.
That's something you need to listen to. So it's the same fucking app, but sometimes it's just calibrated. Sometimes it's calibrated wrong.
It's calibrated wrong and it's running too hot and it's looping,
Yeah.
You hear all the time people talking about gratitude practices, which is another one of those things that when I know, right?
Okay, continue. No, but I agree. It's very important.
It's important.
Who is in the marketing team of Big Gratitude? Come on.
They're not speaking to men who are raised on Jerry Bruckheimer movies. But I do sometimes think, I'll try to do this. I don't have any formal gratitude practice and it sounds super healthy, but whatever. I can't make myself fucking do it. But I do sometimes, when I catch myself being really hard on myself, just list things. I have a marriage that I wouldn't trade for any other marriage that I know. I would do, I have these kids that and I just go down the list. And in one sense, it's gratitude that I'm so grateful that I have all these things in my life. But in another sense, it's like, hey, dude, just read your own resume. A piece of shit would not be here with all these things.
But also, that is maybe an end around to recalibration of the app.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I remember I used to get stressed out in a job that I loved when I was 23. I was making good money. I was climbing the ladder. I'd get stressed out, and I used to do this gratitude practice of sorts and just think about all the people in the world that would cut off their left hand to have my problems.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm so thankful. And going through that kind of recalibrates this monkey chirping in your ear, telling you that your life is horrible and hard.
Yeah. One of the most effective ways to do this for me, and I know you get uncomfortable when I say nice things to you, but you're a big part of this, is I think through who my friends are, my good friends, and I think of how much I admire them and the caliber of people that they are. And then I just think, and they want to be friends with me. I must be kind of fucking bomb. Like all these badasses like want to hang out.
You have to do that.
It's a much better way to, if you got to measure your own worth some way that's not internal, it's a lot better than like money or looks or whatever. It's like, who wants to spend time with me?
This episode is brought to you by the Milkless Patreon. If you want to keep listening, it's only going to cost $79.99 per month. We're going entirely offline, so you can no longer listen unless you pay $79.99 per month. Just kidding, it's fucking free. We're actually losing money on the episodes, but we love doing it for you. All we want is for you to tell a friend. Think about that one friend who listens to podcasts. They told you about serial podcasts. They told you about, and just like, tell them about one.
Yeah.
And it's Milkless.
Just return the favor. The $79.99 does get you feet pics from Max, so if you're into that. You know how raw dogging somehow has become like a meme, and not the way you're thinking of it.
No, not the original way, but like you can raw dog a flight and like not look at your phone.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Which is batshit crazy that people like on the news would say the word raw dog.
I know, it's hilarious, isn't it? Yeah, it's really funny. It's like, I do not think this word means what you think it means. But I think that the reason that is caught on, anytime something weird and kind of stupid like that catches on, there's a reason for it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think at its heart, these are people being like, I just want to be alone with my thoughts for a second. And we almost never are because of the phone. You know, we talked about it. There's that great stand-up where that guy's like, I never heard the word mindfulness until 10 years ago. Because when I was growing up, rewinding a VHS tape, mindfulness. Sitting in the backseat of a car with no iPad, mindfulness. Taking a shit with no phone, mindfulness. But now we have to intentionally like carve out those times essentially to actually be with our thoughts. And I think when the default mode network never gets to fire up, then it's kind of always like, those thoughts are always nagging at you and gnawing at you. It's like you haven't had time to actually like think. So it's just chirping.
Not to mention substances. You add, because at work, you're on all day. You come home, you're either on your phone, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, and then boom, it's like that DMN is just locked in a cage. Yeah. Just like affecting your subconscious.
Well, and I think about how many of those addictive tendencies are fundamentally about not being with your own thoughts. Yeah. Whether it is a substance or your phone or work. I have certainly taken refuge in work at times when I was feeling down on myself. It's like, I don't want to think about who I am right now. Mm-hmm. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons, and this is one of those frustrating things that it's like, you know how there are things in the world that's like, if you do this, you will be happier. And it takes 10 minutes a day. And then you're just like, yeah, I'm going to not do that ever. So meditation famously is a way to access your default mode network in a controlled calm setting so that it's not chirping at you for the rest of the day. People who do meditation swear by it.
5 minutes a morning. Just set your alarm 5 minutes earlier. Have a little space. Just take, whatever your favorite chair is in your house. Just do 5 minutes. That's literally all you need. Because it seems like kind of big and daunting. It's like, wait a minute. So I got to like cross my legs and levitate? That's too much, Yeah. It's like, no, just sit in a fucking chair. There's obviously the Headspace app, which I did like 10 years ago. But you basically, I think you just, it's on same thing. It's like, I need to do this. Again, mindfulness, the marketing team, just,
come on. I saw a clip of Denzel Washington in an interview talking about this. He's like, when you wake up, spend 10 minutes, clear it out and just think. And like the way, Denzel Washington says it, you're like, yeah, like he knows he's the guy that they should put in charge of marketing this shit.
Right, because raw dog went way too far. It's like, I'm raw dogging this flight. It's like, oh,
what are you doing?
God, I just got a graphic image and I need to go brush my teeth.
Yeah, there's also like a self-flagellating ice bathy kind of vibe to that whole thing that I don't necessarily think needs to be involved. For me, also, I'll say I have trouble having my body be still when I'm trying to do this because I think there's like some like nagging anxiety of just not doing anything and just letting myself think that like is hard for me. But if I'm walking, particularly walking in nature, that's when I get it going.
Also, like everybody knows that feeling where you're just kind of anxious and you're not checking in with whatever the DMN is. And then you just check in and it feels insurmountable before you check in. And you're just kind of like going through the motion. You're doing the things you got to do. You're doing the dinner, taking care of the kids, doing the work, doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that. You're dreading checking in with whatever that thing you need to check in with. And you check in and it only takes like 10 minutes. You figure it out. And then you answer the 3 texts you needed to answer to then solve the big, huge problem you had, grown in your head. And then everything is better.
Yeah. So, all right. That's the default mode network. Okay. Here's the other thing that really like sparked my interest and took me back again to that statement of like, okay, what is this voice trying to do for you? This voice that actually cares about you. How is it trying to help? There's a million different reasons to be hard on yourself. It can be that your parents were hard on you. It can be learned behavior. It can be, so like, I think there's not like this is why, but this was another idea that I found really interesting. Being hard on yourself is not necessarily the product of low self-esteem, that it may in fact be more tied to a desire to feel things really intensely, which is like, doesn't immediately make sense, right? But I have always felt that about myself. Like I want high highs, I want low lows, I want like a rich emotional life. I do not want to be a flat person. I feel like you're the same way in a lot of ways. We know from the work of what's his name, Lev Vygotsky or whatever, Dr. Vygotsky, that most growth happens alongside discomfort and from being out at the edge of your comfort zone.
The zone of proximal development.
Of proximal development.
Yeah.
So people who want intense emotional lives are more likely to keep themselves in an uncomfortable state, to continue to grow, to strive for big and fantastic lives. Because they have a higher tolerance and even a higher desire to be in their sympathetic nervous system, right? For like excited states. And one thing that we've learned about the brain is that anxiety and excitement are total like kissing cousins, or like, I hate that. What a fucking gross.
Yeah.
Why do we say that?
I've never said it in my life, but continue.
I'd love to unsay it.
I'd Lev Vygotsky that you would never say that again.
Fuck you. It's the worst dad joke.
There's a chance that only you and your family say that, and that you've thought and your whole life you've been saying it.
Look it up. Read a book. Anyway.
Okay.
But you're right. It sucks. Are like anxiety and excitement are like unlikely bedfellows. They live very close to each other in your brain, and they're both
bedfellows again.
Yeah, but they're not related.
Sexual.
What's wrong with fucking? I just don't want them to be related. Okay. I'm just anti-incest.
All right. So these two things are raw dogging each other. Continue.
Well played.
All right. Sorry.
No. Continue. It's great.
Let's get to it.
There's this guy, Dr. Stuart Vyse. I think I'm explaining this right. That people who want to hide, the way he describes it, they have a need for affect. So they differ in the amount of desire for feeling emotions. They find the expression of emotion, even if it's sadness, to be a pleasant experience. Such people are more likely to feel anxiety over everyday occurrences or find horror movies cathartic. They are also often pushed to relentlessly better themselves, because bettering yourself is so tied to being in that zone of proximal development where you're a little uncomfortable, where anxiety lives right along excitement, because there's the potential that something could go great, but there's also the anxiety that it could go wrong because you're kind of forging new ground. Let me try to talk about this in a less fucking nerdy, more comprehensible way.
Yeah.
One of the most common reasons you see when you just search for why are we so hard on ourselves is unrealistic expectations. We have unrealistic expectations of our life. We see all the time, you go on the internet, you see rich people appear to have it all. Of course, you're seeing their highlight. You say this all the time. You're seeing their highlight reel, not their blooper reel. However, on the other side of that equation of having expectations that are so high and so unrealistic that you couldn't possibly match them, and so of course you're constantly being hard on yourself because there's no fucking way. On the other end of that spectrum is a person with no growth mindset.
Right.
Who settles. Right. Who does not chase the things that they really care about because of the risk of failure, who does not experience much excitement because they can't handle the anxiety that goes along with trying something new. Maybe what this voice that when it runs amok sets unrealistic expectations for us, what it is trying to do is make sure that we don't fucking waste our life.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, and actually Dr. Cutlip talked about this when we had her on, anxiety and excitement are so close together in your brain and in your body, in the way you experience them in your body, that you can have a feeling that can basically branch to either anxiety or excitement depending on the impression you form of that feeling. So if you feel a feeling of being kind of like up and jittery, and you go to like, oh shit, I'm fucking this up, what if this goes wrong? Then that's the fork it takes. But if you feel a feeling of feeling up and jittery, it's be like, oh, I got shit to do. I got to make sure that this goes right. Then that can be your superpower. And that to me is fucking cool.
That's interesting. You know what that just reminded me of? I used to do this. So when I had a football game, basketball game, whatever, and it was a big important game, I would always get butterflies before. And I loved them because I heard about this, that butterflies and anxiety, or maybe my parents told me this. I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. They're like, that's because you care. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And use that because I knew it would always go away the minute the tip-off happened. So when it would come, for whatever reason, for that, I was so excited about it. I loved the butterflies in my stomach because I knew that it was going to convert to crazy energy and excitement later that night. When there's a big meeting and I feel it coming, I'm like, oh, here we go. It's weird. But if I don't have my shit together, then it will get like the night before, for example. The night before I have to sleep. So there's anxiety there. I better turn these butterflies down. If I let this get out of control, I'm going to be all anxious. I'm not going to sleep. Oh my God, worry, worry, worry. Then I associate a bad thing with those feelings.
Yeah. And certainly if you're tired and if you haven't had time to just sit and reflect recently, and if your phone is flashing various images in front of you of skydiving and war and fires and 20-somethings jumping from bridges onto poles. That seems to be a whole genre of the internet that for some reason my phone's like, you want this, right?
Or small pillars. Where are they finding these small pillars to stand up?
What are all these small pillars?
Small pillars. Square pillars, circular pillars. Always perfectly just right there.
Pillars.
Just pillars, baggy pants, no shirt.
So all of those things can contribute to that feeling, that sympathetic nervous system up feeling veering towards anxiety rather than excitement and like a motivator to action. The Astros a couple of years ago played the Twins in the playoffs, and the Twins pitcher was this guy Pedro Lopez, who'd had a good season, but the Twins hadn't been in the playoffs for a while, and it was his first playoff game, and he's pretty young, and they're like, how do you feel about pitching in the playoffs? Do you feel pressure? He just had the simplest answer. He said, pressure is a privilege. And then he went and fucking lit us up. He's like, I'm in the playoffs. Of course I'm feeling pressure.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. My other option is sitting at home.
Well, so what are some good takeaways, some things we can do? Like if people are, resonating with like, wow, my, DMN is out of control. Like I'm living just beyond, the ZOPD, excuse me.
ZOPD, the zone of proximal development. Sure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if you're living there and you're like, I need to kind of ratchet this back, it's very easy to just be like, just give yourself grace. You know what I mean? But what can we do? We can do a little meditation, a little mindfulness. I bet you 5 minutes a day of that is probably the biggest uplift.
That's the low-hanging fruit. Bang for your buck. Yeah.
I might try. You want to try it?
Yes, but don't feel like you need to do it first thing in the morning. Don't feel like you need to sit cross-legged with your thumb touching your
anus. Sorry, thought you were going for raw dog. I thought
whatever. Whatever works for you.
Okay.
But I think like for me, it's walking or it's yard work. But it's do something where you get into that part of your brain where you really get a chance to calmly reflect. I think that's huge. The other thing that has been big for me, rather than just try to silence that voice, because if I could boil that voice down to one sentence, it's you're fucking it up. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Rather than just trying to tell that voice to shut the fuck up, which doesn't work because it's there for a reason and it loves me. Try to understand what that voice is trying to do for you so that you can then have a conversation with it that's a little more reasonable and move it from the part of your brain that's reactive and it's just like, you're fucking it up, into the part of your brain. Like if the other night I had said, okay, I didn't feel like I got enough done at work today and I really wanted to finish this project. And so I'm going to go back to work later because the anxiety I'm feeling over not having accomplished what I wanted to today is actually an indicator that I just need to put more work into this thing because I really care about it. I want to get it right and I want to get it done. Then when I came in and I was like, you fucking idiot, you stayed up too late. To just be like, okay, that's actually the part of myself that knows that I don't always do a good job of taking care of myself. Fair point. But tonight
you're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole. Like I do need more sleep, but yeah, but tonight I made the conscious choice that like, oh, holy shit, I'm going to get a week of work done and actually I can take it easy on Friday night.
But also, here's the other quick thing I'd ask you on that. And I thought about this during that story and I didn't jump in. Did you make the conscious choice? Because that's a question. Like if I'm ever going to do that, I literally already have the conversation with myself. And sometimes I'll even tell my wife, I'll be like, hey, you know what? After the kids go to bed, I'm going to probably stay up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm going to fuck myself for tomorrow, but I think that I should be able to recover. I'll take a nap. Do you go that far with like okaying it? Or are you kind of like riding that monkey? You're like, oh my God. Oh, I'm going. Oh my God. I'm so productive. Oh my God. I'm going to keep going. Like, don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Cause then the productivity might stop. It's basically like if you're on a train and the person who comes and stamps, clips the tickets, it's like you were supposed to go to bed at 10. That person is like checking your tickets. You just kind of never got off the train. You didn't get off at 10. You're still going. You never really told the conductor. You know that he's going to be cool with it because everything's going to work out, but you never fucking got it cleared. And that that ticket checker is kind of a fucking dick. Yeah. And he's like, dude, what the fuck? Your ticket's till 10 o'clock. Yeah. And so next time, just find him in the drink car and just be like, yo, dude, I'm staying up till 3. Cool? Yeah. Are we cool? Like, let's do this thing. And
dude, you know what's really cool about that analogy that you just made? I do think increasingly about having conversations with myself. That like this part of me that is hyper self-critical is not me, but it is an aspect of me. It is a voice in my head. So how can the voice in my head that's like the different part of me just like have a discussion?
Yeah, I refer to it a lot of times as we. Like, what are we going to do here?
Yeah.
Blah, blah. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like,
I mentioned Dr. Cutlip earlier talking about like the framing of these emotions. And what she said is like, if you look at stress or at self-critique as necessarily pathological or wrong, then they're way worse. But if you look at stress as like information that there's something I need to think about or take care of, and if you look at self-critique as information about like, oh, this is a voice in my head that's reminding me that I've committed to be more this way, like meet it with curiosity. When that voice is like, you fucking idiot, be like, interesting. That's not how I think about myself. Why would you say that? Then you're having a conversation.
And then check yourself into a mental institution.
Yeah, what we're saying is dissociate and have silent discussions with yourself all the time.
Yeah, just talk to yourself. Listen, walking down the street fast with your hand shaking back and forth with a cigarette, yelling at yourself in front of a police station. That's all we're asking you to do.
Yeah. Sometimes we're hard on ourselves, but sometimes we love ourselves.
Hey, you shut up. You shut the fuck up when you're talking to me. You close your mouth when you're talking to me. Just do that in front of people. That's all you need to do.
You heard it here first.